Unreal Engine is a general-purpose game engine designed with action and high-fidelity graphics front and center. So what happens when you make a strategy game using it? Grand strategy games, which is the subgenre I'm making, are the opposite of fast-paced and graphics are never that important. What's more, most of them are developed using custom engines like the Clausewitz engine for Paradox games. These engines are specifically designed to accommodate things like the Province system. Unreal has no such built-in system, so everything has to be built from scratch. Luckily, Unreal is easy to work with and incredibly powerful. However, provinces or huge armies like Total War are probably still a little bit outside of its capabilities, or at least my capabilities / patience. So I went for a purely settlement-based map like Mount and Blade. This was much easier to do, and I actually managed to create some quite nice-looking cities. I use a procedural generator to make them, and you can easily find videos on my channel that go into detail about how I did this. I'd already decided that Ascendant Dawn wouldn't be like most other strategy games. Instead of being a static entity, the player will be a nomadic tribe, again, like Mount and Blade. This simplifies things. Unreal even has a project template for something similar. While this template wasn't designed for strategy games and really isn't that similar, it works well enough. I also needed a main map, and this was actually really easy. Quixel, Unreal's huge texture and mesh repository, allowed me to download textures and composite a great looking material. I then carefully designed and sculpted a huge world. It worked until I decided to use mesh partitioning system. This system is something new in UE5 and allows the maps to be divided up to allow for better performance. However, it led to characters falling off the world in unloaded areas, so I disabled it. World partitioning is really designed for open worlds like those made by Bethesda, and is actually just a more sophisticated version of what they use. This is part of the difficulty of working with Unreal. Many of the inbuilt features run into problems when making this kind of game. They're simply not designed for these parameters. Another problem I've run into is performance, which is funny because the assets in my game aren't all that demanding, especially compared to the modern photorealistic games developed in UE5. This is because the amount of stuff that has to be loaded and displayed at once with hundreds of buildings, trees, and entities, the graphical command can be high, especially when factoring the highly advanced UE5 water, which has caused me a fair few problems. I should also say I'm not using Nanite, and my definition of performance problem is getting 80 FPS at high settings, mainly because I want the game to be playable on less powerful PCs. The CPU calculations, which are very important for strategy games for the number crunching, aren't as efficient in general purpose engines, such as what I'm using, when compared to purpose-built ones or raw code. It's very easy in Unreal to write horribly inefficient code, especially in blueprints. There are tons of ways to slow the game down massively, such as relying on the get all actors function too much. In terms of actual development, I spend most of my time working through a mixture of blueprints and C++. If you're confident using C++, I'd recommend for all games, and especially a game that deals with a lot of numbers, to use a mix. C++ makes a great base and is way easier and way neater to write complex mathematical coding. You just have to look at some of the spaghetti blueprints to see why. While blueprints are better for rapid prototyping and way easier for interacting with the world. Rapid prototyping is especially important in user interface design. I've spent an incredibly long time designing, redesigning, and implementing UI. Since it's one of the most important things in the game, getting it right is vital. This is actually fairly pleasant half the time, however, it can be tedious with the number of lists I have to implement. I've noticed Ascendant Dawn is often lacking stylistically. The world looks a little empty. I'm sure to some degree this is because I haven't implemented everything yet or placed all the starting entities in the world, but it's also clear this is because of other reasons. A lot of strategy games used to have the same problem, and remedied this by adding tons of small details. While I'm not at all capable of emulating them fully due to time, engine restraints, and my skill, I've tried to add more interesting stuff to the map. The rivers present aren't anywhere near as good as a lot of strategy games, but they still add to the environment. I don't believe it's technically possible to create the inland rivers found elsewhere using a mere spline system, but I might be wrong. Another little detail is the workmen, the very small workmen that appear next to resources and mine or farm them when the resource is being used. These changes, along with others, highlight a problem: feature creep. The scope of Ascendant Dawn has waxed and waned over time. Taking anything out is painful, but often necessary, and I'm no stranger to adding things in. Even things that aren't needed, but I still justify them as they will make the game better, I say. I've always tried to find a middle ground between keeping the game lean to ensure I actually finish it, and a meat to it so there's actually something there. Indie games, and especially those with a more sandbox or modular nature, pretty much always suffer from this paradox all throughout their development, and I'm sure I'll have to make some tough decisions in the future about what to keep in. I would say, overall, developing this type of game in Unreal is a mixed bag. Unreal is a very nice engine to work with until you get an unexplained error caused by something such as the garbage collection, which is the problem whenever you make extensive use of software not written by you, but it's still necessary, though I'm sure if I wrote a game engine it would have more than its fair share of problems. The biggest challenges have been getting everything to work together, which is inevitable when so many complicated systems are mixed together in one game. I haven't even got round to balancing or simulating a late game yet, but I know it's going to be hell. That's why I'm certainly going to release the game unbalanced, which doesn't matter all that much because it's single player. The amount of time it would take to play the game hundreds of times, figure out everything that's wrong, is just not feasible, so it's far easier to balance it after people have started playing it and utilise their feedback. While there is an awful lot of difficulties in developing this game, I'd say it's certainly worth it. Finishing a feature and everything just working is a huge dopamine rush and well worth the hours spent fixing the bug. If you enjoyed this video or would like to learn more, like, subscribe and comment.